Hello and welcome to my book review show videos. I've done a few last year, and this year I have not been reading as many books. In fact, I just finished my first book of 2018, and this is almost the end of the year. This year I've been reading a lot of magazines, which is also very interesting that I should talk about sometime. So books obviously provide a deeper insight into it subject matter, and we consume a lot of information on the internet these days. So I started subscribing to magazines because at least magazines are curated content. Like somebody has looked at it, thought about it. There's an editorial meeting, and had gone through a process, and published. And also it takes me away, not takes me away, but kind of broadens my horizon and types of topics that I would otherwise not read about. So yeah, I subscribe to a bunch of magazines and I've been kind of keeping up with those. That's also has been a challenge. So and finding time, dedicated time to read a book. Not being able to do that this year. But finally, I picked up this book because I was going to Uzbekistan, and I thought, I wanted to. And whenever I travel, I try to get some books, some reading done about that place, history, politics, culture, other things. So when I made the decision, that I found this book in the bookstore. It's The Silk Road, A New History of the World by Peter Frankopan. And the front page says, it's a quote from the Wall Street Journal review. It says, a rare book that makes you question your assumptions about the world. So I was very excited. I was like, okay, that's great. It's going to be a new kind of book. But maybe not. So positive aspect of this book is that it's able to encompass a lot of history of the world from different parts of the world and kind of brings it into a single thread, which the thread is actually the trade. That's the main argument of the author, that a lot of things, historical events, movements, all driven by trade, by people's need and to do business, and so that's the main assumption. So nothing jumps out in the sense that I didn't know about before, because I've been a student of history. I mean, I love historical books. So you read about Indian history, you read about American history, but he's able to connect the two, right? So that's important. At least from that perspective, I think people should read this book, just to kind of maybe trying to connect things that were happening in India or America had an impact on India, or vice versa. So that's sometimes you're not able to make that leap. So he provides that. So in that respect, the book is great. Good read. Moves in a fast pace, and it's trying to cover a lot of time period and region. So very interesting from that aspect. However, it's written by a British historian, and it also falls into the same category where it becomes, even though it tries not to, it becomes very Eurocentric vision of the world, and especially later chapters. And you can sense that just by how many quotes or references, source materials are actually from Western books, Western authors, Western personalities, versus you know from other parts of the world, right? So if he's talking about Iran, how many quotations are actually from British and American talking about Iran and what's happening in Iran, versus Iranians talking about what's happening in their own country? So those kind of things are important, and I think that book also suffers from this. So as long as you have read the history, you have done the analysis, this book is fine, because you're able to consume it and see it, that it's from that perspective. But he's able to see and connect the connect the dots in terms of change in one part of the world was affecting other part of the world, and then how that was affecting. Like for example, one incident is that so Mughals, and of course we know the Portuguese and British were coming to India to trade, but what were they trading and what was happening to the money? So for example, he makes a connection between the wealth that was being drawn from America and then that wealth going to Mughal India through, of course, the Silk Roads. And then what Mughals did with that wealth, of course, like for example, they built Taj Mahal. So that's one connection. Another connection it gives is one Massachusetts-born person, a British American guy, and after British lost America, he was sent to India, and he made so much money in India, legal. I mean, some say because of corruption as well, that he became really rich, and then he was born in Connecticut here. No, actually, he was born in Massachusetts, but then he went back, he retired, and he gives a lot of money to a college in Connecticut. Um, and the college got so much money, of course, they honored him by changing the name of the college to his name, which was Yale. So actually, Yale was funded by Indian money or money earned in India, while Taj Mahal may have a connection with wealth that was drawn from America. So those kind of things, sometimes you miss that. So he provides that interesting connections, which was good. But again, I think yes, I would recommend that for people to read it, but with the caveat that understand that most of the sources quoted, a majority are from Western sources rather than other way. And it could be just because I don't know, Peter doesn't know Farsi, Arabic, so he's depending on secondary sources first of all, and then for others he's quoting original English sources. So that's the bias that's there, and that's problem with a lot of books in English produced here, even English written by Indian authors or other authors, because the worldview is consumed by what's being produced in English. So that's why it's very important to read actually different languages in Urdu and Hindi or Farsi, Arabic. Um, so yeah, that's my review for The Silk Roads by Peter Frankopan.